Hey, welcome everyone. I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, my name's Mandy Aulick, and today I'm here to introduce our webinar, From Raw Footage to Real-Time Intelligence, AI Video Search with VAST InsightEngine. And our speaker here is Matthew Rogers. He's the Field CTO AI and Security at VAST Data. And just want to give a couple of housekeeping things, and then we'll get started. I'll pass it over to Matt in a minute here. So just a couple of things here. If you have any questions, you see the Q&A tab there, so you can ask any questions there. And also, once your question is approved on our site, it'll appear there. We will have Q&A at the very end, so just be patient. As you ask those questions, we will get to the ones we can today. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, our team will follow up with you personally afterwards. And also, if you want to submit any questions anonymously, you can just click on the hide name. There's also a tab next to the Q&A, which has some additional resources that are related to this topic, so that you can also take a look at. All right, so I will be passing this over to Matt.
Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday, 12 Eastern time, wherever you're at. I hope you're having a great day. I'm going to do a quick overview of, or I guess an overview of our video search solution. You may have seen some of the material at the GTC event, and where we've created a video search platform using NVIDIA NIMs on VAST. And yeah, so this is the webinar for it. So quick overview. If I'm going to talk about a solution from VAST, I have to talk about the VAST platform. So the VAST data platform is an on-premise data center solution for large-scale connected storage of flash. Right? It allows for you to scale to exabytes, and it provides services such as the VAST Data Store with a multi-protocol file and object storage, along with a database, which is super fast and scales up to basically unlimited size, and the data engine, which ties into the InsightEngine, which goes along with the video component. So VAST is a unified, disaggregated, shared everything namespace platform, which means you can have a file share. It's an NFS mount that's an exabyte, and then you can have the same thing mounted in an SMB share or an S3 bucket and see the same data all three places from the same objects. It's really, really slick, very powerful platform. But that's let's start with that. Okay, so we're gonna go to the video search solution, or the overview of how this works, right? So major pre-points for this, as I've been discussing our video search solution or our blueprint. This is not a SaaS solution. The data is yours. It runs on your platform, and this is done on your hardware. So it's not a SaaS thing. You don't send it off across the internet to some party that could make a copy of it, or you need to have a contract with. This is done on your equipment, follows your controls in your process, right? So those are the gotcha questions that always come up after the first few points. So let's start with them right now. Okay, so if you're like a lot of content producers, you have years of content, and you probably went through some sort of project where you converted to digital, right? So you went from tape to some sort of digital archive. They're in folders. They might be labeled at a high level in buckets of some sort, or there might be file names that say what the series are or the news date, maybe if you're lucky. There's a whole bunch of data, petabytes of data, and it's incredibly challenging to utilize that. I've heard questions of, could you find Obama from 8 years ago on the day he had a green tie, right? And the answer to that is yes, right? So there's a real challenge with doing that in your archive now. If you don't have summarization data, and if you don't have the metadata generated, generating that data is very, very expensive, right? So right now, in your current archives or in your MAM or in your video solution, your newer content probably has better metadata because people have been adding it either manually or through some sort of augmented process or additional metrics, right? So you've got some existing data that you can do more with easily. And then you've got all of this legacy untapped potential. Examples I've heard of this in the field is like, so you've got someone who is a celebrity today, but maybe in college they weren't. I heard referenced Michael Jordan footage, right? That's someone who was very popular as a professional athlete, but in his college years was unknown, like most people are when they first get started, right? So if you have footage of Michael Jordan doing all kinds of exciting things when he was younger, and it's in your archive and unlabeled, that's a lot of valuable content that you otherwise can't access, right? So there's huge amounts of archive footage and value that can be used to generate additional content and can be used to make money, which is probably why a bunch of you are tuned into this podcast, or excuse me, webinar. So when we talk about the current workflows, right now you go in the environment, you do a search, you might have some keywords, there's going to be a reference into the MAM, and then you'll have to browse through low-res proxies and figure that out, assign it to an intern, do something like that, right? And then you'll find it. Now, if we pull that into the VAST InsightEngine, what we can do is create that metadata on the fly from the archive. So what happens is data comes in, lands on the platform, triggers an event, the VAST data store triggers an InsightEngine action, triggers a data pipeline, the archive footage gets processed, the AI pipeline goes through it, and it generates embeddings and vectors which tie back to and allow you to then reference that via search pipeline. You can also ingest that into your MAM, which we'll talk to further here. InsightEngine is very powerful. So as part of these workflows, if we drill into it, the InsightEngine from the trigger event can do lots of different things. So you can do straight VSS injection via agent, which can do a summary based upon input prompt. Based upon that summarization, you could do things like object detection, facial recognition. There's subtasks that can be spawned from an agent ingest event that can trigger other models to do more things, right? And throughout your agent processes. Things that have been suggested in my discovery in this process is a fashion agent that lists all of the clothing that everyone's wearing. There's been other ones that talk about, let's keep the emotional tone of the scene summarized, right? Is this a high energy, high anger moment? So then if you have the facial recognition tied with the object detection tied with the person, you could say, show me this person in an angry scene, and you will find them in an angry scene based upon semantic search with a multi-vector correlation with a ranker tied back into the semantics, right? So with those multiple layers. So you can do some really powerful stuff powered through the InsightEngine and from an integration perspective. So it's a your summarization for each data item can have multiple dimensions, right? So if it's a picture of a president, President X, you can note the clothes he's wearing. You can do a facial match. You can facial match the people around him. Each one of these items creates its own metadata set that can be correlated into the vector store on VAST data by the InsightEngine, and then can be referenced by a semantic search agent or injected further down the line. So as an example in practice, we got a shot here of show the interviews of a CEO discussing sustainability filled outdoors, right? So as an example, you key this in your MAM and you find all the footage of a CEO discussing sustainability, right? It's very, very simple. Now that's a small query, but if you're taking large amounts of news footage or you have lots of archive footage, finding that could be very challenging. So this allows you to pull stock footage, generate things, generate highlights, ideas in sports things or sports related aspects to generate a highlights reel on the fly during production from archive for someone who's done something notable, makes the user experience more exciting. And speaking specifically to archive here, there's also been suggestions for using this in security aspects, cameras. There's a lot of people that are using similar blueprints from a camera perspective and security and reprocessing those archives. So it's a very versatile technology, but specifically for archive here. So this further is a drawing that shows a previous and then a tie-in with the modern workflow. So you take the content request, do the trigger the search. You can have the AI agents fetch and pull this together. And the agents can be triggered off the InsightEngine relaying into your MAM. There's different ways you can fetch the data, part of an integration perspective, right? You can write your own search box and just find footage, or you can inject it as part of that process into the MAM in an information layer, depending on how your integration and how your platform is going to work. Now, as a real world example of that, I can show a video that we have produced. One second. Okay. All right.
Faber dances, right circle, now wrap around, score!
That's a cool video. Maybe it's because I wrote it, but the got some bias to the technology. But that's a great example, right, of vectorizing, searching the video, creating summarization agents, and then being able to do something really exciting with it. I get goosebumps when I see that footage come up in the search, because when we first pulled the solution together in the video, when the searches started working and it was showing everything, it's a very exciting moment from a technology perspective. I'm very enamored and excited with the future because of AI, and this technology is the next foundational step, and I'm super excited to see it progressing. Even since we created the first version of this model, there's been new releases of the Vila model with even greater accuracy. So to that point, the slide that I have up on here, we talk about agents, and this is more ingest process and showing the overlay to the MAM. When you create the agents and you do the processing in the vectorization, new models are going to come around, and you're going to want to reprocess your footage on the new models, maybe, right? Depending on how much better they are. And in the VAST data platform, the InsightEngine can trigger those re-ingestions and re-summarizations on the new models with the new agents as part of the process. And it can all tie into a unified data source, which is incredibly powerful. So in this example slide, we talk about pushing into your MAM. Now, a lot of your archive and media producers are going to have some sort of media asset manager production system. You're going to show your footage there. And in this process, we can tie in and bring that metadata in so it integrates seamlessly. Nothing very difficult to learn, because it can show up as an information layer in the current platform, right? So that's been a consistent request as we've been talking through that. Now, there's more you can do with this too. So to the point of a vector search, right? What that means is vectorization in semantic search is taking the context and the summary of the videos from the individual agents, putting it into a store and allowing it to be searched for like things. So semantic vector just means like you search for dog, it could match German Shepherd, it could match all kinds of different words that aren't exactly the same because of the intent is there. And depending on the structure, the vectors allow you to do that, right? So it's a really interesting way to make search useful. That's something that's come along with AI, is the vector search, because the vectors are generated by an AI process. So if you didn't have a concept for that, part of your querying and searching is done through the vectorization. So that ties in, right? So we can do all these different agents, face recognition. So find faces of certain people in your archive. So say you want to know when you have footage of celebrity X and you've got a list of 100 faces, digging through your archive and finding those faces and tying them in and noting them. That's a pipeline process. Object logo recognition. So knowing when you have sponsors on screen as part of your production, or knowing the days that you had sponsors on screen, or as a sponsor, knowing when you were on, right? Or monitoring feeds to know if something is coming on about you. This can all be done from archive as well. There's a lot of different agents that can happen. Orchestration wise, it is the sky's the limit almost on the amount of agents and things you can do. But I've heard resoundingly from my interviews with customers and people developing this, basic summarization via agent is groundbreaking, and to be able to do it at scale across petabytes is something that's very desirable, right? So there's all these exciting things, and then there's what you want, right? And I'm listening to that. I'm also showing more, right? But if you want to be able to pull a list and list everything that happened in these individual items and be able to dig through them and search it, we can do that. And on the VAST Data platform, it's a very unique place where you can actually do that. So example use cases here, AI assisted promo creation, mention that, that's really cool. So say you imagine you have someone, I don't know, score some sort of a goal, a basket, some sort of relevant shot, right? And you throw back through the archive, you do a search, and you show the last 10 times they did that in your little clip reel on the side, or put it on the billboard. You can do some really cool stuff with that. Real-time news, documentary intelligence. If you're recording that sort of feed and you want to trigger events, financial events, things like that, based upon outcomes, or alert people, there's a lot you can do on the fly here using the existing platform without using expensive sort of subscription things that become hard to navigate. It's a very interesting time. Content moderation as well, if you want to risk fines, preventing that, making sure that you don't show something in the way that you wouldn't necessarily want to show or associated with your brand or process. There's a lot you can do with that. And compliance rights, if you know you're not allowed to show something, and you can create an agent or a guardrail that prevents that and marks it in your archive as such. So there's a whole bunch of different things you can do from a revenue perspective. And I'm not going to read every bullet, but I kind of have, haven't I? Dynamic content personalization too, right? More and more. Okay. So why VAST, right? Why does this matter? Why is this so exciting? So what I'm hearing is people with archives, they have petabytes and petabytes of data, and there's lots of different expensive SaaS solutions that charge by the minute that will churn your footage and can find you certain like things. But summarization and enrichment based upon the metadata and tie-in via your existing documents, SAP records, all this type of thing can be vacuumed in as part of your VAST process to help pull in characters, actors, things like this to enrich and fill in this VSS or video summary template. So with that in place, you can do it on your existing data. So if you have 40 petabytes of video or 80 petabytes of video, or I talked to someone with 2 exabytes of video the other day, shipping that off via SaaS is a no-go. And creating your own metadata is a no-go. That is just it's too arduous. You can't hire 100 people and run them 24 hours a day to slowly work down your archive, right? It doesn't make sense. And you shouldn't do that, right? That's a terrible business practice, especially when you can do it by AI, which is a great technology for doing things just like this. So you can take your existing data, chunk it, process it on the platform, and because of the single disaggregated shared everything namespace in VAST, you end up with penalty-free copies. So using the similarity technology, when you take a copy or a chunk of the video and it aligns to the binary alignment of an existing file, it essentially becomes free and it comes referenced in the VAST data store. So as you build out your AI solution on VAST and you end up with different copies between different elements of your AI pipelines, the pipelines become, or the copies become free. So or not, I shouldn't say free. They don't occupy disk space, right? They become a reference to the sub-object as part of the VAST similarity technology. So you end up with a very efficient way to process this huge workload, because these videos archives are huge, right? So VAST solves that for you. Now, you can do this with other technologies. You can copy it 3 times. Typically, you'll end up copying the data. And I had this verified with a couple of folks. In my own building of the pipelines, it needs about 3 copies. I verified with other folks that are doing this, typically between 2 to 4 copies. So you end up with your first copy, you typically have to, which is your master, then you end up having to chunk it and slice it and maybe retranscode it to match in what the VSS or the reference models can process. Then you end up, if you're using a SaaS provider, you're going to upload it to them, create another copy. So you end up with 3 copies. And then you end up with your summary and maybe saving the output. So you could end up with 4 copies on the final step. If you do it on the VAST platform, you're 1 copy. You might end up with a partial transcode or not. If it's in the same format, you'll end up with a chunk of it that gets processed by the AI, tied into the Kubernetes cluster on the side, and you'll end up with a very efficient data usage, right? And what's nice too with the unified platform, all of your data can be processed in a single buckets or reference buckets without sharding, without any of that. So you can end up with a full process. And then you have your whole unified platform where you've got your vector store. So and this is a problem too when you scale up. You end up with a vector store, so you've got some vector tech, right? You've got one of these different platforms, and then you've got its own storage solution, and then you've got your AI orchestration platform, and then you've got your external processor. So you end up with all these different things. They all have FTEs associated with them. They're all expensive. They all have their own administrative functions. They all have all this stuff, right? And at scale, it's easy. I shouldn't say it's easy, but you can accomplish vector search with some company documents and some sort of SaaS platform pretty easily for small scale. But once you say, I want to do everything and I want everything to work, this is why people are buying the VAST data platform, the VAST data OS. The solution is there, right? Every piece of data is referenceable across the entire landscape in exabytes via all your AI functions, and it's built in. And it includes the vector store, it includes the scalability, it includes the object storage, it includes the NFS components, all the protocol access is there, and it's built into the platform. So that is why people are using that. And it's one of the reasons why I think it's so cool. That is my overview on video search on the VAST data platform. And I am ready for some questions if we have some. And thank you for listening. Andy. No questions so far. Okay, so I'm either very interesting or very boring. We'll find out. So reference-wise, the video search and summarization template that was used here is the NVIDIA NIM for the Vela model. It's a Nemotron Cosmos model. You can find it. It's referenced in a blog post. There's some other reference material as well that's on vastdata.com. And the video that we saw is on YouTube. If you search VAST Data NHL video search, it will pop up.
Matt, there is a question that just popped up. Is it available?
Yes. So right now the InsightEngine is available. It's in early release. 5.4 is going to be the full release, which I think is coming in the next quarter. So right now we are doing a, I think, limited rollout on InsightEngine with existing customers, and we are selling it, right? So from a platform perspective, you can do video search and summarization on VAST today and use the existing pipeline. Vectorization and vector store is included as part of the design. The VAST vector store is going full integration in 5.4, and yeah, it works. And you know, part of VAST too, to answer that question as well, when you buy VAST, you buy a solution that improves. So if you bought VAST 2 years ago, okay, and you're an existing VAST customer, you get the VAST data store, you get the VAST database, and you're getting the VAST vector store with each release. So as a VAST customer, your product gets better every single release. Right? It's part of the way VAST does business as a software company. So you're going to continue to get more AI features and more awesomeness as part of the foundation on the way we deliver VAST, which excites me because as we gain our customers and we get more and more every day, we're adding more and more functionality. And there's nothing that makes a customer happier than when they turn the key in the morning and there's a new feature on their tool if they want to use it, right? So I'm very excited as to be at a company that does that, right?
Matt, there's another question here. Can the user change out the LLMs or buy them on the open market for processing?
Yes. Okay, so when you do the VAST InsightEngine, you tie in the pipeline. Our reference architecture uses NIMs, but from a pipeline perspective, you can call other AI inference pipelines, right? So you know, in theory, you could call SaaS providers. You could do all kinds of different stuff because you own the pipelines. So you can use it how you want. And it's your data, right? So the bottom line is it's your data and you can process it how you want off your platform. We're going to provide the tooling for you to do it. And you can reference that and do that how you see fit.
Another question, Matt. There's a couple more here so far. Do we need external GPU nodes or provided by VAST?
So we don't provide the GPU nodes right now. So we are in an architectural reference for DGX from NVIDIA, and we also work with, so VAST is a software company that provides a software storage platform / data OS. So it works on a number of different hardwares, Dell, HP, Cisco, Supermicro. So we prescribe hardware for VAST, and to that point, the GPUs can be provided through a lot of different ways. But they get called via inference pipeline, and whether they have a V1 compatible endpoint or Llama, or however you want to define it, they can be called in and integrated as part of the integration process. In our VAST video search here, you know, we're calling in and using the NVIDIA NIM pipeline, but there's no reason why you couldn't. I do have a blog post that I'm writing to, doing a multimodal video summary using a unexpected pipeline that I'm really excited to share. I don't want to give it away right now, but I think it's going to be an interesting blog post.
Matt, I'm not sure if you can answer this here, and we can always get back individually, but I have a couple questions around the pricing policy. Is there an extra cost for InsightEngine?
So no. So there's some tie-in for C nodes with the amount of compute and some database usage that ties in the pricing and scale out. The platform has a SKU, right? It's a single SKU, and that's included with it. Now, if you use a ton of it and there's some CPU pricing, your salesperson will have to talk to you about the C node licensing, and there would be some increase with the scale up for the amount of CPU that's tied in, but it's not you don't have to pay extra to unlock any of the core functionality of VAST, the vector store, or anything like that. That's included, and you get a certain amount of nodes that are included as is with every bit of licensing that we do.
Okay, I think any other questions? Okay, I think we covered it all. Thank you, Matt. That was great. And for anyone else that, if you want additional demos around VAST, you can join us at vastdata.com/demo. They're every Tuesday and Thursday. And yeah, thank you. Thanks, Matt. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Have a good day.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.